So next up is the first keynote speech for today, which will be delivered by Mr. Papuna Lezava. He will be giving his keynote speech on Georgia's digital finance vision. Mr. Papuna Lezava is a deputy governor and a member of the board of the National Bank of Georgia since December 2018. Prior to joining the National Bank, he served as a financial officer at the IFC since 2015 and was advisor to the executive director of the World Bank Group. In his earlier career, he held various positions in banking supervision at the National Bank of Georgia and Financial Supervision Agency of Georgia. He is a CFA holder. He has a master's degree in finance and a bachelor's degree from the American University in Bulgaria. So straight up, we go into his keynote session. Let's welcome Mr. Papuna Lezava. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anika, for introduction. Let me start by thanking the GIFT platform and Bank of Georgia for organizing this conference, and also for giving me the privilege to speak today as a keynote speaker. I think such initiatives are very important for Georgia, for raising awareness in general for developing the fintech sector in Georgia. And we at the central bank value such partnerships very much. I will use the opportunity today to share with the participants some of the recent fintech initiatives that we have at the National Bank of Georgia, and also give you some expectation about the upcoming developments. To start with, we all know that the environment in the financial sector is changing very rapidly. Innovation is growing, and the financial sector is becoming more and more technologically heavy. And to be honest, the firms that do not embrace technology and innovation today will not survive competition down the road in 5–10 years from now. In this evolving world and fast technological development in the financial sector, it is important that the regulation is also adapting and changing. So for this reason, we at the National Bank of Georgia have taken what we call the open regulatory approach. And this means that we are taking a flexible and technologically neutral approach to risk. And to achieve this goal, 2 years ago, we established Financial and Supervisory Technologies Department, which focuses mainly on development of fintech, but also it focuses on the risk. So it has dual objective. We know that with fintech, the good that comes with it in terms of development, it's also accompanied by the risk. So the objective of the National Bank of Georgia is to try to find the right balance between the two. And our goal is not only to create environment that serves Georgian companies and focus on Georgia, but we also want to create the platform that gives the opportunity for regional and global expansion to Georgian companies as well as to international companies. So in this regard, I will summarize some of the key initiatives that we're undertaking. So let's start by saying that the banking regulation in general has become very complex, and complexity is even more increasing. So to give you anecdotal evidence, Basel I, that was one of the initial kind of international banking regulation standards, it contained about 30 pages back in the 90s. And by now, Basel III contains more than 1,000 pages. So this is how complex the regulation of the banks have become, and it's not going to reverse down the road, seems like. So in this environment, it's important that the startup companies have easy access to legal and regulatory information. And for this purpose, we have created the Innovation Office, which is an open window for all participants, the regulated firms as well as non-regulated fintech startups, to communicate with the National Bank of Georgia. And through this window, we provide free consultation to them to discuss their proposed business models, how they fit in the current legal and regulatory environment, and suggest possible changes, adaptations to comply with the regulations. And this is our main communication platform that has worked very well so far. It has been established for already about 2 years, and we have received multiple applications through this platform. One of the obstacles for development of innovative services may be improper regulation, or rather dated regulation. So some of the static regulations that are adopted across the world, but also in Georgia, have been adopted 15, 20 years ago when technology and the finance was very different. As the world is changing, technologies are evolving, and we see more and more presence of technology in finance, regulations will have to adapt as well. So for this purpose, what we did is we created the regulatory laboratory, which is the RegLab, which aims at changing the regulation according to the new development. How this works is we create the sandbox for new business models, for new ideas. We let those business models be tested in live environment, and if they turn out to be successful and they turn out not to create systemic risk for the financial sector, we adapt the regulation accordingly to match this new business model. This is how I'll try to give the opportunities to test the new ideas and adapt the regulations accordingly. Another important initiative that we started last year was creation of a digital banking license. As we all know, the entry barriers in the banking business are quite high, and sometimes it's quite difficult for innovative business ideas to enter the banking business because of high capital requirement, because of heavy investment needs in technology and so on. So what we did is we created the digital banking license, which simplifies the market entry, but it also describes the clear path how this entry should then lead to a full-scale banking license down the road. To give you one obvious example, if for the banking license we require 50 million capital investment, for digital bank license we require 1/10 of it, only 5 million, which is roughly $1.4 million. Another important initiative, which is currently live but still evolving, is the open banking framework. This is basically the copy-paste from the European open banking framework. With this, what we try to do is to allow the banks, but also non-bank fintech companies to leverage the whole banking network. So basically, the open banking approach gives the access to the third-party providers to the banking data, if there is an agreement of the client. And we think this will be a game changer in the fintech industry in Georgia. And what's important, the open banking framework that we established in Georgia is very similar to that of the EU. And the firms that participate in open banking will also be ready, at least technologically, to enter the open banking world of the EU. Another important initiative which is currently ongoing is the instant payments system. We are developing this infrastructure with the help of the World Bank. So this is one of the key initiatives that will drive the fintech development in Georgia, because many of the fintech ideas that we currently see is related to the payments industry. And without good instant payments platform that is cheap, quick, fast, and easy to be integrated, this fintech firms will have some challenges. So this reform is happening, and probably in about 1 year we will have a new payments platform in Georgia, which will be modern, instant, and cheap, and the fintech companies will be able to leverage them. And finally, we have several other initiatives in the pipeline related to the crypto assets regulation related to digital currency. These initiatives are at initial stages, though we have quite ambitious pipeline, and hope we'll be able to provide more and more news to the industry in the coming months and year. Now, of course, the initiatives that we have are important. These are our efforts to develop fintech industry, but and they're necessary. But I would say they're not sufficient. They're not sufficient to develop the fintech sector. The results that we have achieved are quite good, but they will not be effective without a strong, active role and active participation of private sector in general and fintech startups in particular. And this is one of the reasons why events such as this one is important. We want to see all the stakeholders talking to each other, understanding their views, and planning their business and their work going forward. I personally am a strong believer in fintech. I think this is the future of finance. And I'm sure we can overcome some of the headwinds together that are there down the road, and develop the financial sector that eventually serves for the benefit of the society. Thank you very much, and I'm handing over to the next speaker.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Papuna. We have like 2 minutes, and there's the question, if you do not mind taking that. Is that okay?
Of course.
Awesome. So someone says, sorry, hold on. How is the open regulatory approach expected to relate to equity and debt crowdfunding platforms? Is it anticipated and allowable use for sandbox?
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually, and we are currently working with a few firms about the crowdfunding initiatives. We are more open to the equity crowdfunding platforms rather than debt, but also debt crowdfunding platforms can be tested and accepted, provided that the risks are covered. To give you the recent history in Georgia, so we had quite quick development of online lending in Georgia, which eventually turned into payday loans and loan sharking, and then the government has established or the parliament that the cap on interest rate and try to ban this type of behavior. But this was a kind of negative twist of crowdfunding, but they did not rely on the robust statistical models to assess the credit worthiness of the borrowers. Rather, they relied on high interest rates and assumed high default of the clients initially. But there are quite healthy models of debt crowdfunding across the world that have a strong business model with strong statistical models to assess the credit worthiness. Such debt crowdfunding models can be tested in Georgia as well. But I would give the preference to equity crowdfunding platforms, a couple of which are being developed through our open regulatory approach and sandbox approach today. If there are more ideas, please refer to our innovation office through our website, and we will be happy to engage.
Okay, thank you. We'll just take one final question. So someone asked, what's the progress of the developments with regard to CBDC that was announced a month ago?
Okay, so this is a good question. Our timeline for CBDC is the following. We have already announced the major criteria that we want to follow. So these are more principle-based criteria, but we have not set the specific exact technological requirements yet. What we are currently doing is we're speaking to multiple firms across the world who have experience in cryptocurrencies, and after this, probably sometime in fall, we will already develop the exact technical requirements for CBDC, and towards the end of the year, we plan to announce the tender already. And here we are currently considering two approaches. One approach is to go with the purchase of the system. So we will hire a technological partner that will implement the CBDC in Georgia, but ownership will be within the National Bank of Georgia. But we also do not exclude the possibility of licensing potential operators of CBDC. So instead of National Bank being an operator, private sector representative will be the operator of CBDC, but it will be licensed by the central bank. Yeah, this is where we stand currently. Sometime about mid next year, probably we will be able to launch the pilot project. And if the pilot turns out successful, then we will go on with the full implementation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Papuna. Thank you for your compelling keynote speech on the regulatory approach of the Bank of Georgia.